Okay, welcome. Thank you very much, Jörg. Thank you very much, CAMPARI, for Art of Hospitality. This is really cool. And thank you, everyone, for coming. When I started to do this, Jörg wrote to me about 5 days ago or something like that, or called me, and he said, can you do something for Art of Hospitality? I had a plan for a cocktail truck that I was going to do with Xavi, who spoke yesterday, the experimental group. And it just didn't, it was really fast. It was within like 8 or something like 2 weeks or something like that. But I called Tobias, who's putting this together with Jörg, and I said, you know, we have this idea for this cocktail truck that we want to do. What do you think? I mean, I know it's short notice. And he's like, what do you need? And I was like, right, okay. So that's the way this has all come together. Super cool. It's, somebody was telling me like, oh, you know, it's all corporate now, and you can't plan anything cool off the cuff. That's not true, because all of this stuff came together really quickly, and I don't have like a really intimate understanding of how all this stuff works and how the money flows and whatever, but I know Tobias told me he could do something on the phone, and about 14 hours later, everything was sorted. And then Jörg called me and he said, I'm doing this thing. So we had no plan with our cocktail truck, so it just ended up that we came together to decide to join forces, even though I'm not sort of a minor player, but appreciate the opportunity nonetheless. So I did this I'm a writer, and the speaking that I do on either behind the bar or in front of the bar, so this format is slightly strange for me. So I write all this stuff out, and it's really great to read, but to remember everything that I wrote, it's not going to be the same impact. So I made notes, and I'm going to use them through this thing that we have here. I own 2 venues in Karlsruhe, which is like a little bit like Paris and Venice, but it's in the south of Germany, just sort of in that Strasbourg, the Rhine Valley. You know, it's sort of quadrated by Stuttgart and Strasbourg, Frankfurt to the north, and Basel to the south. So it's sort of like in the middle there in that low-lying no man's land. Ryanair services our airport, in case anybody would like to come. And yeah, we have an airport. Yeah, it's like a country club life. You know, it only takes about 50 minutes to get there. But anyway, it's the Electric Eel Cafe on Werderplatz, which is like a working class neighborhood. But the first place that we started was the Commodore Room, and we're now doing, and I'd like to give a shout out to Clemens right here, who's in the house. Clemens lives in Karlsruhe and in Berlin. And he said, I have a building in Berlin, in Friedrichshain, and would you want it, you know, to operate in? So I was like, nice. Yes. So we're here sort of parallel to the BCB, no tickets, still having fun. We're parallel here to sort of get that developed and started up. And it's a co-working space, you know, 8 to 10 desks, and then we do cocktail events, we do tastings, we do that kind of thing. It is not a fancy cocktail bar. We don't have a lot of adequate refrigeration. We don't have anything that you would assume if, but we do have a lot of great people that surround the thing, and that's kind of what I'll get into a little bit later. So I'm going to go to this one. Who am I? And I think that's maybe more than you guys are ready to endure. I'm going to tell you who I am. Because it's super important that not only for me as a person to understand who I am, it's really important for anybody that wants to jump in with both feet and do something in hospitality to understand who they are, or you'll find out really quickly that you run out of road. And Monica Berg, who I've not had the privilege to check out her presentation, but it's understanding, the title is the art, yeah, of to be yourself, and that's essential, I think, to having some success. If you know who you are, and a lot of what I do now and in the future, it's informed by who I am, and I understand that, and it's for good or ill, you know, like for good or ill, I understand who I am, and I try to bring that to the fore. So when I was, who am I? I'm a lot of things to a lot of people, and then I want to present myself as a certain way to certain people. But basically what I am is when I was in college, I traveled the United States, and I saw bands play, and friends of mine, we were interested in like a singular mission, which was freedom. We were interested in finding out who we were. And we were interested in experiencing America like Jack Kerouac. We were interested in experiencing America like being in the circus. You know, you used to be able to jump on a train and go for free, like around the country. You might get stabbed or something along the way, but you could travel the country with abandon and see different sides of life and experience this thing. You know, we talk about freedom in America, and people laugh about it, and they say, "Oh, fucking Donald Trump," or the whatever that, you know, they're spying on you and all this shit. But I will tell you that for good or ill, America has made me who I am. You know, and a lot of people, Hunter S. Thompson, people that I look to as influences and heroes, and they would not exist in any other country in the world. That's just a place where they managed to nest, and their egg hatched, and they grew to be this amazing, you know, character. Their characters and their personalities, and that's what we were looking for when we were younger. And we were young, and we wanted to live life, and at the expense of perhaps, you know, violating decorum here. I know this is a sponsored event, but we took substances to the point where we had no recollection of ourselves as human beings. We destroyed our egos, and we were looking to be completely free. And night after night, we camped, to call it very loosely. Sometimes we took over people's houses. My sister's still apologizing to her. We would stink these places up, and then we would move on, and we would go to other places. And that was life on the road, and we were looking for that. And we were looking to find something ourselves, to find that dream that we've been told about exists as Americans. And through that, unfortunately, I totally destroyed my idea of what I should do for a career. I was studying in school, and I remember arguing with my parents. They just spent $100,000 on education. You know, like, I don't know if here it's like, what, $500 a semester, and people are protesting. They spent $100,000 over 4 years, and I'm like, you know, I don't really feel like going to work in a glass building. You know, I don't want to be the guy wearing a tie. No offense, Jörg. You know, like, but I wanted to be myself. I wanted to like take a bite as much as possible and try to show people what I was. But, you know, you have to make a living. You have to do something. You have to. You know, you can have these romantic ideals, but at some point you have to do something. So I thought I'd be a creative in an advertising agency. And I took classes like advertising, copywriting, all the stuff that surrounds that design. This was not difficult work for me. This was super, super simple. When the professor would walk in, and it was like just like this, and I would sit over there in the back. Okay, everybody, take out your homework. And the pre-med students and all, shit, you know, they would pull out their homework, and they would be like, I'm not very good at this, you know, I don't have time, and they don't have a lot of patience to do it because they're not going to be in advertising. They're going to be like, you know, doing surgery or something. So they were shit at it. They were terrible. I was very good. When he said take out your homework, I could start my assignments, and I could finish it by the time he came around to collect it from me, and he'd look at it, and he'd read it on the way back, and he'd put it aside. And at the end of the class, he'd read it to everybody and say, like, this is advertising that deserves to be made. It was about selling, like, clocks or something, but it was super, super simple. Like, I just could do it, you know? But anything else, like, for instance, business, statistics, economics, accounting, that's what I wanted to do, I thought, because my mother was successful in real estate. My friends' parents were cable barons, and they were extremely successful, and I went to Las Vegas on a private jet because my friend's dad was extremely wealthy, and I thought, yeah, I want to do this. This is super cool, but they have to deal with numbers, and they have to deal with spreadsheets and shit that I'm not willing to do, you know? So that's just one of those things that you walked up to the border, you know, and you're just like, it's not for me, and you like walked away, no matter what, you know, that whether riches are promised or anything, it wasn't for me. So I walked away from it, and I studied advertising, and I was good at it, but everything about who I am right now is informed by some kind of memory that I use as a defense mechanism when I was in those moments where I didn't know I couldn't do so well. I fail at things that are super, super challenging and complex, like language studies. My German is still incredibly shit. After being here for almost 17 years. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, but I will create worlds around myself that are completely complex, and people will be into it and totally like it, But it's totally a defense mechanism, you know? It's just like, I'll just hide over here and throw a great party, and all these people will be there speaking English, and it will seem very international, but just because I don't speak German very well, so it's like a defense thing. It's just what I do. Like, it's a natural sort of reaction. But how is this about bars? Like, you're like, what the fuck is this about bars or what? Like, we're here to talk about bars. But it's absolutely about that, because everything that defines who I am and my experiences in my life, they start to define what I want to project to the rest of the world, what I want them to see. They're things that make me happy. They're the things that define me as a person. They're things that start to make me feel complete. Otherwise, you're looking from the outside in at somebody that society's created for you. And you're thinking at some point, like, is this really what I want for my life? Is this what I want? And walking away from things to enter something else that might not be as lucrative, but it gives you a soulful satisfaction is something that's worthwhile, in my opinion. When I left school and I didn't want to do advertising anymore because I was driving across the United States, and I entered Vermont State, crossed the state line, and I thought, there are no billboard advertising. It's like in Germany, there's no billboard advertising. If you've ever driven through Alabama or Georgia down to Florida and you see like erotic cinema, all this stuff, like flash, 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 and you're just trying to drive, it's garbage and it's so disgusting. So I didn't want to contribute to it, so I just wanted to walk away from all of that stuff. I didn't want to be involved in that. So what's the next thing that I can do? I learned how to type, and I learned HTML coding. Those are the two essential things. And I learned how to type because I got kicked out of Algebra 2 class when I was in high school because I just couldn't do it. And I told the teacher, I'm like, you're not gonna kick me out of here. You're not gonna fail me. And he's like, I will. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, we're buds. Like, we vibe, you know? And he's just like, get out. So then I had to go to typing class. So I go to typing class, and I'm like, okay, it's rhythmic. You know, I think I have at some level like attention deficit disorder. So like it's rhythmic, and I'm getting into stuff. It's a skill, like it's a real skill. It's something that you can use. I learned basic HTML coding while I was part of my advertising studies, and now I had some skill that in the late 90s I could get a job working for an internet company. And that's what I walked towards, that's what I was doing. But the only reason I did it, it's not really something, I wasn't like a computer guy, like I did shitty in those classes too when I was in college, because I just didn't pay attention, sleep late, not go to class. But you could get away with it. You could have a lifestyle. You could extend your lifestyle. Like, I'm going to show up late, I'm going to get the work done, and I'm going to leave early and go to the pub because like I can do that. I'm just going to crush it out, put my headphones on. But in doing that, in wearing those headphones and sitting behind that computer, you become insulated. You start to become afraid of talking to people. You don't want to have anything that's not written as a record to protect yourself. You said I should do this, I did it. I spent your money, and now, you know, there's a question. So if you have the written record, you don't have to, you know, you're protected. And that's what you start doing when you work on the internet every day. That's the reason they have email us for questions, and there's no phone number. You know, they want you to only have a record. And so the phone rings, and you shit yourself. You're just like, oh my God, someone wants to talk to me. They might ask me a question about something I don't have an answer for. And that's fine, like in the normal world. But when you work like at a computer every day, you think that you become like this, and you have to answer people. And I was just terrible at that. I was, you know, all the time like that. And I would be, you know, most of the time probably shouldn't have been at work, to be honest. So when I left school and I started thinking about what I wanted to do, there was always this escape mechanism to where I would go back into my past. And one of the things that really defined who I was as a person was things that my father would expose me to. He was instrumental, he was extreme, he was a huge character in my life. He was a policeman, but he was like not a hard ass. You know, he'd pull people over and he'd identify with their situation, if you understand what I mean. And he would maybe, you know, follow them home or something like that. He was a human being. And he was very witty, he was funny, and he would take me to bars when I was a kid, 10 years old, 12 years old, something like that, maybe 8. Because we were at the lake, you know, we're at the holiday house, and he'd tell my mother that we were going to the bank. I don't think we ever went to the bank. Like in all of the years since I've known him, I don't think we ever went to the bank, but that's what we would tell her, and she would always accept it. And she knew he was lying, you know, and we would go there, and we would go to this place called Ernie's, and it was one of these taverns that was longer than it was wide. So at the front, the bar would come up, it was running along the wall like Immertroy, if you know Immertroy, it was like a long bar, and the way the light would spill in through the window, and it would cut the letters that were hanging on the wall, on the window that spelled Ernie's, the shadows would lay on the floor. There were pickled pig's feet on the back bar. There were bottles, you know, there were VO and like Seagram's whiskey and shit like that, you know, like not good liquor, but not too much vodka either. So it was still like there was hard drinkers still going there. And in the back, there were 6 to 8 pool tables. There were pinball machines. It was like a fantasy land for people who wanted to escape. Talk about day drinking. This was a day drinking, like going to the movies for day drinking. It was unbelievable. And so I would go there, my dad would sit there and watch this singular TV that was pretty much always playing the Chicago Cubs. I don't know how. It was always, the Chicago Cubs are always on, Harry Carey, hello, afternoon everybody, you know, like that was all going on. But I'm there playing, you know, eating the popcorn one after another, the pop, 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 pop in the corner, and I would go eat it, cherry Cokes, free refills. You know, but he would just be having his solace. He was drinking his scotch and soda, and he still does, you know, and he still likes those same things. On the way home, we were driving in a boat. You know, we lived on a lake, so we're driving in a boat, and we would stop by the waterfront, and we would have like a cheeseburger in a basket with French fries. And there, now, we're in a place that's a little bit like this room. It has windows across the back. They're tinted. You can see your boat bobbing in the waves. You know, as you're in there having a drink, eating a cheeseburger from a basket, and the barman is wearing a black vest, bow tie. It's nice, you know, but it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and people are you know, drinking hard liquor, and they have their children there. Like, but this is the 1980s in America. You know, everything becomes more and more hemmed in, more and more Disney, and I hate it more and more. So, like, I live on those memories, and again, what I want to show people are those memories back when that was still okay, and it was moral, and it was good, and it was right, and it's not policed, and it's not someone else telling you that. That's one of the hardest parts I have about living in this country is it seems like, at least in Ocotber in the South, people are always so quick to tell you what you should be doing, what you're doing wrong, you know, and it flies against everything I'm all about, so it's difficult. But other bars that we would go to when I was younger, like when I was a kid, and my sister and my brother would be there too, Italian fireside lounges, like red brick walls, leather seats with swivels, brass fixtures, you know, and pizza, and it was the kids, we had stuff to do. There was like a cartoon thing, Mr. Magoo in the basement by the bathrooms, but Dad's there having a scotch and soda, decompressing, you know, and this was a huge thing for me. It made me feel, even then, that we had this great, good place, this place where we could go, and it hugged us a little bit. You know, there were cheesy photographs by the hostess booth that were like Wayne Newton, and you know, these kinds of people, and maybe a local politician. We have the Iowa caucuses, so lots of people come for that. And they'll sign, hey, to Harry or whoever owns the bar. But that's a point of pride of ownership, you know? Like, it's cheesy, and if it were done ironically, which is funny and everything, but it means nothing, these people were proud to show that Wayne Newton came to Des Moines, Iowa, and they ate at, you know, Babe's Restaurant or whatever. White tablecloth, all that stuff. And really good drinks, but they're shit. The intention of the people that made them was 100%. And so that informs a lot of what I'm doing. I'm thinking, I'm consumed as a sentimental person. And like I said, when I left school, I didn't want to contribute to the garbage, all the noise and everything. So when I entered the internet, I thought that was somehow going to contribute less to the garbage was contained. It wasn't out on the roads. It wasn't on the side of buildings. It wasn't littering your every place that you could look. You know, every viewpoint, every vantage line was, at least it was contained in this 640 by 480 at the time viewport. And that's sort of what I gravitated towards. But as I said, I became insulated. I became a different person. I am an extroverted person. And all of a sudden, I started to being afraid when the phone rang. There were like alarm bells going off. So I transitioned into opening my own business. And we started in London, and we were just the kinds of guys that were drinking like the Polish lager from the corner shop, going to Islington. I would leave some of this out, but we were, we were being younger people in London at the time, in the early 2000s, sort of having a good time, but nothing to do with bars yet, nothing to do with bars. But it seemed, at that time, I started thinking about external events. Like, what can we do? The whole time that I worked, I started pitching my bosses, wherever I worked. As a developer, I would say, you know what? WebDE, WebDE, I worked at WebDE. And I would say, we should have a physical space that exists out on the high street, that's like a cafe or something, that extends the brand, to use some kind of cheesy advertising talk, to actual people. And that's the kind of thing that I was concerning myself. So that's what I thought was interesting. And it moved on from there to just inviting my friends when I owned my own office space. But it wasn't working because we were bending it around like, okay, we can use this office during the day, but these guys are going to come tomorrow morning. It's going to be messy, and they're going to be pissed. So we can't do it. But I would still like really stupid things like margaritas and gin and tonics and horse's neck or something like that, or just whatever, throw some stuff together. But all of a sudden now, satisfaction started to enter the picture. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't being worried about what you're doing. It was like, I'm having an actual good time doing this now. So maybe there's something to this. I didn't think, but then I started getting a little more brash. I decided to start writing some emails to some brands and ask for product. We're going to have a party. I have a big idea for it. I think that it's going to be something. So I was in Naples, Florida, with my dad and my wife, and we're going out, and my mom, they're still married, and we're going to go for dinner. My mom says, no, you got to come home at 7 because we're going to the Turtle Club, and you got to be there. And we're like, okay, so I'm not listening. And we go shopping or whatever you do when you're in Florida and you're trying to fill the day with things. And I asked my wife, who's German, I said, what did my mom say? What was she talking about? Well, she said that you need to be at the Turtleneck Club by 7. And I was like, what? Like the Turtleneck Club? Like the Rollcrog and Pulley Club? Like, where did you get that? That's not what she... And then I just thought about it for a second, and I'm like, that's genius. Like, could you imagine a place where people are walking around drinking martinis, wearing turtlenecks and rollcrogging? Like taking themselves seriously, it's not a joke. And there's like a portrait studio in the back. All of this in an instant, like, it's like advertising. There are these themes that keep presenting themselves, and this is who I am, right? So I said, that's not a thing, but it should be. So by the time we got back to Germany, I pitched it to a few people, friends of mine, ha, ha, ha. I cannot imagine a world where this would someone would fund this. I cannot imagine, And this is the bridge that I crossed at that point, and this is where my life changed, is that I wrote Hendrix Gin an email. Campari distributes them here in Germany. And I wrote them in the voice of Hendrix as far as I could discern it. Now, again, studied advertising, knew copywriting, and ha, 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 all this kind of stuff, and perhaps you would like to endeavor to blah, blah, blah. They wrote me back. That was amazing. They wrote me back, and it was like CC'd on a couple people here in Germany. The distributors at the time were before Campari. Said, basically, give this guy what he wants. Let's see what happens. Send us some photographs. It was unbelievable. We did the party. We had the photographs, everything. They're like, okay, this looks cool. Then I got an email from like a group of people that I did not know their names. This is totally unfamiliar. Some guy named Xavier Padovani, some guy named David Piper, all of a sudden, now they want to meet in London. So I'm like, okay, let's check that out. So I'm there on business anyway. And this is I'm reluctant to even say this. I'm not going to say this part about the story. I failed miserably at selling a website to a champagne company for reasons I will leave out. You can ask me privately and I'll tell you. But then I had the meeting at the Experimental Cocktail Club at Gerrard Street in Soho, in Chinatown. And so I'm standing outside dressed like a banker, wearing my, what I assume people want to see me dressed as, to sell them something. I have a tie on and going against my own rule, and I have these weird pants on. And I'm standing out there. I can't find this fucking place. Have you ever seen it before? Have you ever been to Experimental Cocktail Club? Have you ever tried to find this place? It's a door between two restaurants, and you can know the address and miss it. But if you look to the first floor up there, then you're like, ah, okay, there it is. Like curtains, you understand something's going on there. But this is where everything changed. Like this is, I did not exist mentally on this level of, this is what's going on. This is 2011. And I drink my bars my whole life, but it was just something about like they're on the street, it's a commercial thing, you see it has a sign, you go inside, you know, like there's a transaction. That's how it works. Why the hell would you hide yourself? You know, it doesn't make any sense. Then I started to get it. I'm standing outside like, you know, I'm gonna miss this meeting. I don't know what's going on. I don't know, like, just don't get it. All of a sudden, French guy pops his head out. Hey, you Craig? Allez! You know, and I'm like, okay, so I follow him up. I said, I'm really sorry, I'm dressed like a banker. I didn't know. Xavier, you know, I don't know if you know Xavier Parvani. Jeans and a t-shirt all the time, doesn't matter. He owns like fancy places, but jeans and a t-shirt all the time. So now I feel totally overdressed and weird. And I go upstairs and enter the Experimental Cocktail Club for the first time in my life, and my mind explodes a little bit, or implodes, but my mind's way too small to take it in. So I'm just like, what's happening? This is fucking cool. You know, there's people here. I expected them to make me a drink. I also didn't understand how it worked with mise en place and all that. Like, why isn't anybody making me an award-winning cocktail or something? It's like 2:30. You know, they're not open yet. And I'm having a meeting with Vincent Marino, who owns Lucy Rouge in Brooklyn now. And so all of this stuff starts to present itself to me, and I'm seeing these people taking me seriously from one email, and I'm seeing my life start to change. And they're talking very quickly about rolling this stupid idea that I have for a turtleneck club party, people wearing a shirt, out to different countries, you know? And I don't get it. I just don't understand. I leave the place kind of like, I was in a coffee shop in Amsterdam one time and I met some jazz people that I thought were really cool, and it was the same feeling, like walking away like, I just met heroes, you know, like, or these people are taking me seriously. It's absolutely incredible feeling. But, so Xavier's like, oh, what do we need for the party? We need this and that and everything. How much does it cost? 10 grand, one shot, no problem. We'll take over the restaurant downstairs. It's outrageous. I cannot believe it, you know? And then 3 months later, 2 months later, it's not gonna happen. Sorry, we tried, but it's just this season. And I don't know if all of this stuff is like normal, you know, like spirits, people, they have budgets. It depends on what time of year you get in touch with them. All this stuff you find out the hard way, you know? You think you have a great idea. But I stuck with it, and I stuck with it. And by staying with these people and hanging with them, and through whatever natural talents I have as a writer or through social media, it started to compound. Xavier comes back to Germany, and he's coming to Hamburg. Thierry, Daniel, and Eric that just left, they were coming to Le Lion, and they were having basically an oyster and champagne party and nothing else. But it was like sort of a cool flyer. Xavier asked me to come. I will tell you right now, if there's anything you can take away with this, if you're ever extended an invitation by anyone like that, never say no. Even if you have to beg, borrow, and steal, always say yes, always do it. Because it's just like what's happening here right now. There's no downside, you know, unless I were to totally fuck this up. I hope I'm not. But there's no downside to it. Like, it's these people, these amazing folks, and this is the point where I will put this on with pride, they have some kind of, they're normal people, they're very normal people. I've not discerned any kind of difference between these people and someone else who I would consider to be like a, you know, just a friend, because they very much become like friends. But they are gifted, like in a way. You can think what you want about all of these people. You can see them on Facebook. You can form opinions about them. But they have something, and they have a humanity inside of them that they've managed to. I don't know. It's like they can sprinkle things around. It's amazing, and they can affect people's lives and change them entirely. And you have to respect that, you know. And it's for the good. They generally want to have fun, you know. And for me, it's worked out incredibly. So, Experimental Cocktail Club, big deal, whatever. So I go back to Karlsruhe where I'm living, and I want to open an office space. And I thought, you know, we need to have our own place, but wouldn't it be cool if people could kind of come around for a drink? Because I don't give a shit about working, to be honest. Like, I really don't like it. So I just keep thinking more and more about the party at the end of the day. Like, let's invite some people. And so, after seeing the ECC and having my mind melted and imploded and seeing what people with style and taste, Dorothy, who's their interior decorator, like, seeing that, I came back and opened the Commodore Room like 6 months later, and I went to secondhand shops every single day. We found a perfect piece of real estate, and I went to secondhand shops every single day and picked out something along a nautical line. Now, when I told you that I was in Clear Lake growing up, went by boat with my father to bars and all this kind of stuff, I grew up on a lake when I was a kid. And so the Commodore thing, yes, of course, it's Boardwalk Empire, the Commodore. It has some feedback, but I'm very much liking boats, freshwater, oceans scare me. But I wanted to have something like that. I find this imagery ridiculous at the same time as it is beautiful, with like the old sea captain and the sailing boats and all this kind of stuff. These are real people with like real balls, you know, like they could die at any moment. So it's super cool. But I opened the Commodore Room, and it was a co-working space with the idea that we would get other people to pay for it, our office, you know. And but at the same time, we'd have a party. And my bar manager over there, Marco, who joined me and started making whiskey sours, horses' necks, all the easy shit, you know, like some Manhattan's classics. He's been there since day one, and he's like, man, if you ever open a bar, like, I'm totally there. And I couldn't imagine that I ever would, but we had this place to start. Low investment, super easy. We're working there already anyway. So this is the Commodore Room. So that's what we walked into. We walked into this place. It's totally like that. You know, you're thinking, like, he's probably thinking, how the hell are you going to do anything with this place? We had no money. We had nothing. And but we had skills. We had talent. We were web designers. We were developers. We could make things. And so we decided, we contracted with some guys that were building things, that were making rooms like this, Messabau, like, guys. And they came in and they made it the Commodore Room. Just like that, boom. Wow. Yeah, from that to that, right? Now, I picked all those pieces. I grabbed these chairs right here across the street from where the Commodore Room sits on Stephansplatz in Karlsruhe. And I asked this guy, are they any good? They look kind of flimsy. He's like, he's an Afghani guy. These came out of the Schauberg, just down the street. They've had 20,000 asses sitting in them. They're totally sturdy, you know? Don't worry about that. So I picked up those chairs. We used them for tastings. We span them around the room. We have some other ones. And then it's just all about vignettes for me. Like, I'm telling little stories here. That rope came from Kabul, Afghanistan. A friend of mine made a film there. He brought it back. Around the corner, there's antique shops. We picked up this one and traded them. We made business cards. We did everything we could do without money in order to get this stuff. And okay, the couch was the most expensive thing in the room. It's 300 euros. And that boat was 100 bucks. The rest of it was like 5 euros, 6 euros, 7 euros. But every day for 6 months, I went to a secondhand shop and picked this stuff. Every single day, because I had nothing else to do. So I would do that, and even those lights up there, all that kind of stuff, the Caddyshack sort of lamp that looks like it belongs in a clubhouse somewhere or whatever. And then over in the corner, which you can barely see, is my own painting, my ego flaming out of the side of the wall over there, as my wife made that for me. And she gave it to me as a Christmas present, like one of the coolest presents anyone could ever receive. And because I said, I want to have a painting of myself with the fury of the sea reflected in my eyes. And, you know, and I couldn't imagine that somebody would do that for me. I thought it would cost thousands. I know how much it costs to make a website. It's time. It's your time, right? How much do you charge for your time? We charge 80 euros an hour. An artist who can do anything, who can draw a face and make it look like convincing, deserves maybe at least that or more. So I thought, I can't afford it. Some guy, he needed some money, 300 bucks. So it's done. That's me right there in the Commodore Room in its full glory. And this is a guy instrumental to our story about the Commodore Room, instrumental to the story about everything that came and has since, is Sebastian Heck. You have to remember his name, SebastianHeck.com. He's a photographer. And he came in one day to a happy hour or something, or we had a Turtleneck Club party in an external event somewhere in a gallery, and he was the DJ. He comes to me, starts kind of hanging around, and all of a sudden he enters the circle of people, and he comes around a few more times, but he's very quiet, and he's not showing me any side of himself. And then he comes in one day, and he's like, and today we had a similar encounter at Clement's house. He's like, hey, I think maybe I want to shoot your portrait in this place. And I was like, hey, yeah, do it. He comes back a year later and shoots this. And since then, he's shot every one of my parties that I've had. And he is also the next most crucial person that I've ever endeavored in terms of projects. If you have an incredible photographer, or you have a photographer that's gifted at all, have them come shoot everything if you own a bar. Give them free drinks, never charge them for anything. Treat them like your #1 best customer in the world, because you will never be able to afford them in any other way. When you're talking about at least $500 every single time that they come set up their equipment, I must owe him $70,000, you know, like, or euros or more. It's outrageous. So I'm going to peel through these now, and I'm going to start to run towards the end of what I'm supposed to be talking about. So you're going to maybe recognize some faces in here. I don't know. So this is, again, like the vintage trade. We had to fill this room, so I just decided if people have things at home, they could come, we'll make them a drink, whatever. That's Marco. It's the photo that he loves more than any of the other ones that we've ever taken of him. And this was our Yacht Rock Regatta party. And Grand Marnier party, it was super, super, no real cocaine, only fake. And Hendrix, of course. So this is during Negroni Week, and yeah, we had some killer glassware. So I just wanted to make some photo to sort of promote Negroni Week. Just as a side story, we were the very first bar with in cooperation with the Koffer Realm. If you know the Koffer Realm in Karlsruhe, Roman Koffer, the very first one to take part in Negroni Week in Germany, and in that. It was either that year or the next year, we raised 1% of the global total of all the money that was raised in Negroni Week. Now it's sort of a fixed game. People are, one customer shits at $1,000 for like a drink and you know, or whatever. So but this was just like, we had a party and like 40 people came and we raised like $1,500 because they were drinking Negronis all day. And they're like, yeah, here you go, like $150 or something like that. It's, you know, that's the trick. But so this is sort of like just some impressions. This in particular is the last, at least what we thought would be the last party at the Commodore Room that we were going to have. A friend of mine had, I was standing in line in the airport to go into, what country, Scotland or something like that. I was going to Edinburgh, and we were going to have a party there, a Hendrix party. And I got an email or a text. Matthias died of a heart attack last night. He was a guy that used to come to the Commodore Room. He's a younger, well, he's 5 years older than me or whatever, younger-ish. He's not old enough to die, let's say. So he checks out, and then like a week later, we'd already scheduled, like, we were opening the Electric Eel, and so we're like, let's not compete with ourselves in the beginning. Let's not cut our crowd in half in case all these people want to come to our new place. We have a cash register there. Here we would just, you know, at all Commodore Room parties, we would just say, here's your drinks. There was no menu usually. We would just give them whatever, whiskey, sour, Manhattan, whatever. We would kind of, this guy looks like he wants a, and then that was it. And if you want to pay, you can. If not, you don't have to pay anything. We would always end up doing pretty well, breaking even a little bit over. Sometimes it was shit, but not, usually sometimes it was outrageously good. So over the brew of it. So I invited my friend Sean, and I wanted him to play It's All Over Now, Baby Blue by Bob Dylan. Because this is it. This is the last party we're going to have. All these people came. I don't know if you can recognize Hank the DJ right in the middle there from Freiburg. He's been all over the place too. And he played this song and people were crying, you know, like, you're looking around and you're just thinking like, you've created something that is absolutely beautiful, you know, and you cannot believe what's going on. Like the chalk guy in the back was a guy that rented a desk at the Commodore Room, and he's an illustrator. And I just said, can you do something? I found that in Sperrmühl, you know? And I said, the chalkboard. And I said, can you do something? He made it in 15 minutes, and we put it up there, and it was like, it's the thing people talk about all the time. You know, and we were going to erase it and do like another one every week, but then we decided it was so cool, we just keep it. And so this moment was one of my absolute favorite moments. I don't know if you know that song, It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. It is very long. And he remembered every single lyric, never looked at his lyric sheet, even though he had some. And it was just, and then after it was over, I went up to the front, like, if you have to talk and you can't be quiet in the next like 8 minutes or whatever, 7 minutes, just fuck off now. Like, you have to leave, or you can stay and listen to the performance. And so everyone stayed, and afterwards you cannot believe the wave of jubilation that spread over the crowd, like how good it felt, how honest and true it felt. And this was not about commerce. This was not about making money or filling tills or anything like that. And I understand real bars have to do that, but this is not a real bar. This is a place for people, you know? And so that's what started to inform what I wanted to do with my life, which led me to opening a cafe, which I now run in Ocotber, which almost seems like an afterthought at this point with this talk, but the Commodore Room is sort of like our baby, you know? It's like sort of like the thing that we made with the most honesty, like with the most true thing. The electric eel, as much as I love it, it's my job, you know? It's like what I do to try to make a living that in the end I won't end up shooting myself in the head, you know? Like that's something that I gravitated towards over all this time. So I'm just going to peel through these photos. There I am. I actually do make drinks sometimes. I'm not very good at it. But I like to do the double shaking, sometimes the shake and stir. You guys all know what I'm talking about. Do that one. That's a signature move. Happy people. That's me in Naples, Florida. That's the workroom at the Commodore Room. So it's off to the end of the room. You'll see it in some other photos. 6 people sit there. You know, that's like countertop. Whole room's made for like $5. And Marco again. I think I'm going in the wrong direction. This is a great moment. This is Negroni Week. Miad in the back, if you recognize Miad, he was nominated for a Best Bar in Germany during the awards the other night. He lost to Bettina, but fantastic bar. And this is just what people are like. I think it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, drinking Negronis all day. This is what starts to happen. And that's one of the reasons that we, yeah, there you go. This is the early incarnation of the Commodore Room. My wife drew the logo, which she's illustrator. She did the electric eel as well. And I told her, I'm like, I want like this octopus that's all over the place, but it's at the same time sort of baroquely, like, you know, whatever you call it, like encapsulating the typo and have the year in there and everything like that. I told her all that, and she's like, and she came back with this logo. It's absolutely amazing. There's myself again. And the sort of vibe, she drew it first without doing, you know, by freehand. And we had the opening of business plants or something. So it was much more sort of like Etsy. It's like much more Etsy website-like looking. In the very beginning, it started to get used. We had, that's my dog. This is the very beginning when we took the bar up from the parking garage just outside that door. And that door opens like double. So if that door hadn't opened double, there's no way we could get that huge bar in there. We would have had to chainsaw it in half in order to, like, down the middle in order to, like, get it through. But just so happens that door was able to open up. We brought it in, and that is like 3 minutes after we put that thing down there, people started drinking beer around it. And then it just forever, it like took off from there. Like they never stopped drinking around it. It's still there. That's the bar. It had been in like a temporary architecture place for an Austrian coffee house or something. And that was my very first incarnation of the logo in the moment with paint all over my hands. I just made a Commodore Room logo. That's what it is now. That was just taken a couple of weeks ago. In these moments when I'm sitting in there and I'm working, maybe I'm just having a little whiskey or something like that, but no one else is there. I've cleaned the place. I do it myself. And I see something like this, I see this vignette, and it just calms my soul. You know, it's just like, this is something I've created. This is, you can see the Experimental Cocktail Club book sitting over there. These things are always, always threaded through. Like, it's always represented somehow. There's like some kind of accent. This is, yeah, during Negroni Week or something like that, and that's Marco again. When we were making videos for the electric eel, and we had questions, one question, like 11 or 12 questions, and everyone had to ask all of these questions that were fairly critical, so I tried to represent different people's opinion or like point of view as we were opening the electric eel. Like Craig, I don't remember what his question was, but that's me at the Harbridge, which I talked about. That's Clear Lake, Iowa. That's where, when I was talking about my father, and you know, they've owned a place. It's a harbor with apartments around it, and they've owned a place there. That jacket is, I don't know how many years old, but they bought it in 1974. So for 43 years, I was living on the water. You can see now the Commodore Room connection, like this is like, that's the Commodore, you know, like that's where he came from, that's his home. It's not like just some fantastical thing I pulled out of, you know, the air. It's all inside myself, you know, it's all in history. So this is another vignette that I really like to look at. And yeah, it's beautiful. That's sort of like me deciding I don't want to work, you know, like that. I'm willing to work, just not like that. It's Coco. I think you guys know Coco, some of you. He did a deconstruction. It was a high water mark at the Commodore Room. He could not believe that people drank. You can see how many people are there now. On the other side where you can't see, there's maybe just as many people. So 20, 25, 4 cases of gin. The people were just, I don't know whether it's funny, cool, or whatever, but that's what happened. He couldn't believe it. That's my idea in some way of, it's cheesy, right? But that's what I'm talking about back in the 80s. I would see something like that, you know, and it's people having a good time. Like, they are enjoying themselves, you know what I mean? When I have parties, I want people to look like that. I want them to enjoy themselves and not give a shit what other people looking at them think, you know? I want them to be comfortable. I want it to be fun. Miad again, just a friendly little capture. We also do work at the Commodore Room, so it made sense that we start to develop identities surrounded by this sort of atmosphere. Nick and Nora, which is a spirit shop in Karlsruhe, was like one of our first jobs that we got hired to do. And it was great. We did all this stuff, super cool. We made several sort of Booze Hound, which is in Berlin now. Before that opened, we had the idea for Booze Hound in Karlsruhe, and we made a whole identity. Sven Bruner, that owns Nick and Nora, he hated all of it. He's like, he made it all himself. He paid us like $2,000 for our work, or $1,500, and then he's like, throw it in the garbage, or archive it or something. He didn't want it. This wasn't him. Fair enough, whatever. Look at that awesome stuff up there. So this is my wife and one of her interns. It's sort of, again, an Etsy moment. That's our guy. And I think you'll recognize some of these people in here doing a tasting. And that's myself in Florida again, the workroom. We did Dirty Dick's first menu, which was cool. Scott came, put on a master class. That's my sister at Clear Lake again, my dog. That's the Commodore's choice. I'm starting to go a little bit quick here. This is my drink that was served in Paris this summer at Le Marie Celeste. Oh, super, super stoked about that. More or less a ripped-off recipe with everything changed. The template just sort of changed everything, but it's more or less a ripped-off recipe. But it tastes really good, and people like it. Like I said, we run on donations. That's me at a Bloody Mary thing. Neil Diamond, really important for the Commodore Room. It just takes me right back to 1980. Again, with a little bit of this. And Scotty's masterclass that he did in 2013. And yeah, it's excellent. So we have a hell of a good time there. We do external events like at the Coffee Room. Roman wanted to do something. He's like, can you imagine a theme or an idea? And I'm like, yeah. I can totally. So like I said, how about we have a picture of an old-fashioned sitting at the front. In the back, we'll have some people hanging out, chatting, with the smoke rising in the front, which makes it so we can put typo in the front, you know, and it will stand out. Like, and that was just like in our conversation. Got my buddy that's a photographer in to shoot it, and that's it. It's done, you know? So, and this was we did a pop-up in Berlin in 2015 during BCB. And yeah, so we, you know, heroes. And we loaded up everything, cocktail glasses, records, everything, brought it here. And we were in Neukölln on Sonnenallee at Kindelstuben. And it was a big moment. Hendrix, I called Coco. And again, bartenders don't need brands, brands need bartenders. But I will argue in certain cases that bartenders can use brands effectively, like today and like this. Yeah, like this. Yeah, exactly, at this moment here that we're talking. And in this one, I had this idea, and I said, you know, I want to do this event in Berlin. I'm a little worried that no one will come. Okay, yeah, I'm a little worried that no one will come, and I can't pay for it. So I called Coco, and I said, can you pay for this? And he's like, sure. So he pays for it. I get Alistair Burgess to come and be bartender. Xavier was DJ. Then I got Soren from Copenhagen to be a bartender, and then Hank was a DJ. So all of their social media presence is now multiplied across all networks, and it's overlapping. And boom, 200 people show up, the whole industry, Nico de Soto, everybody from Paris, New York, everything, the Quixotic projects, all these guys show up. And I'm like, and I'm standing in the corner and nobody knows me, you know, like they don't know who I am, but I'm looking at something that I created and I'm like totally proud of it. And that's it. I'm not even going to show you pictures from the Electric Eel. Maybe I'll just show you the cover photo or something, because I know I went a little bit long. I was really worried I wasn't going to have enough. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's the logo. You can see it on Facebook. It's actually a real commercial space. And it's now a graduation in interior design, which is also sort of important. From when we had zero cash at the Commodore Room, and it was more like a gentleman's club from the late 19th century or whatever, to the 1970s, which is more like Turtleneck Club, and everything straight lines, no exposed wires, all vinyl, great coffee, everything. And anyway, thank you for letting me ramble, because that's what I do best. And I hope everybody has a good time in Berlin. Thank you to Jörg, thank you to Campari, and I hope you enjoyed what I did for you there. So thank you.